Hello, and thank you for joining the build overview for eSchool Data version 8.9. With ESD version 8.9, users will see a number of changes to the learning code setup. From District Calendar Setup Day Code, you will now see this Generation Options button. From here, you will see the ability to set up individual selections for each one of your learning codes. This is to be able to accommodate districts that are utilizing hybrid learning with students being taught remote part of the day and in-school part of the day. In order to set that up, all you need to do is select the Edit button to the right and select the periods that the students are to be remote for the day. Additionally, from the daycode setup, we have added a new Settings button. From here, you can select an alternate bell time that will be used as the default for a particular daycode. From the calendar, you will be able to make changes to the setup for any of your learning codes. If adjustments need to be made, just select the day code and edit from within this screen. Select the periods that should be remote for the day, or deselect periods if the students are supposed to be fully in school for the day now. Version 8.9 will also introduce a new learning code report. This report will show you the setup for each one of your school days with your learning code and any period selections made. With version 8.9, there have been many adjustments made to the attendance module based on user feedback in order to accommodate capturing students who are learning remotely. The first change that you will notice from the student profile is a new attendance legend. From here, you will see all of the definitions for any of the statuses that you may see on the student's attendance profile. You will also notice a new room number column. This is going to represent the location of the student and the teacher for the day, in order to help track whether or not a student was learning in person or remotely, even when they are in school for the day. This column D indicates the student's default room. This is the room that is associated to the class section. This column will never change. In the T column, you will only see values if a teacher has adjusted the room that they are teaching in for that particular period. Otherwise, this will be left blank, indicating that the teacher is in the room noted to the left. The same goes for the student. If a student is learning remotely, you will see a home icon next to the attendance status. In order to mark a student as remote for the day, you have many options. First, the student's learning code can be associated to the calendar for any particular day. This will indicate that the student should be remote, and the calendar will automatically populate the student status based off of the learning code assignment. If you need to make a change to a single student for a single day, you can just select the Edit button, where you will now see a new drop-down. By default, if the student is at school, then all of the room locations will be set to the room number. If the student is at home, then this will populate at home for all of the students' classes. When we save the attendance, we will now see this home icon followed by an RP indicating that the student is remote present. This combination of values replaces the previous orange remote present status. What this allows us to do is track if a student is remote, as well as if they are tardy, or if they are dismissed, or if they are absent, in order to allow us to properly capture where the student is at all times. If the student is in school for part of the day and they are at home for part of the day, you'll see this new status of BP indicating that they are both present. This means that the student was physically present in school as well as learning remotely for the day. If you need to assign a remote status to a student for a range of time but do not wish to adjust the learning code assignment, you can still do so by adding an attendance event for remote present. This will update the student statuses to reflect that the student is remote for these days, and there will be no additional action needed on your end. One last change that you will notice from the student profile is a new column here which indicates whether or not the attendance was saved for a class. What previously was an italicized P to indicate that attendance was or was not taken has been replaced with the exclamation mark to match the period attendance summary. If class attendance has been recorded, then you will see a check mark in this place, and it will notify you of when the attendance was last recorded. With version 8.9, you will find a new report under Period Attendance Summary for by student. What this report is going to do is show you the period attendance relative to the student, which will include any room location changes. To reduce the list to only changes that were made, select Room Changes Only. This will populate your list with any changes that were made to either the teacher's room or the student room that would indicate that a student is learning remotely. The attendance status by date report, as well as other attendance reports, will all include virtual status filters, where users will be able to quickly filter the list for students who are intended to be at school or at home, or students that are scheduled for both. We have also provided additional items that you can include on this report. Items include the attendance taken icon, as well as including the room number on the Excel. This will populate the student's location for the room for each period when exported to Excel. If you opt to include the attendance taken icon, then you will see the exclamation mark or the check mark indicator identifying when attendance was last recorded. ESD version 8.9 includes a number of changes to the Teacher Connect attendance roster. You will notice the first thing available is now a room column. This is going to identify the default room that a student should be in if they are attending school in person. If the student is learning remotely, previously you would go to your attendance flyout and you would select remote present. Now, in order to mark a student as remote, you're simply going to click on the room column to toggle the student to at home. This will allow you to also mark the student as absent or tardy and properly reflect where the student's intended location was and what their status was for your class. You can also mark the entire class as at home or in a different location for the day by going to the mass attendance flyout up at the top of your screen, selecting the new room or the location of at home, and applying to room only. This will fill down your column with all of the students reflected as remote. If this was done unintentionally, then we have provided a new undo button up at the top, which will revert your attendance statuses back to what they were prior to the last save. If you need to change the location for yourself, we have also provided a teacher's room field up at the top. If you need to change the room or location for an individual student, you can do so from the attendance flyout by selecting the room drop-down here. By default, if a student is marked remote by either their learning code or from the attendance office, you will already see the home icon populated here for the student.